Ms. Roth, in your testimony, you basically said a couple of times you want to make sure everybody gets covered. It's not the direct responsibility of NTIA, but do you think we should have allowed the ACP program to end?
Senator, I've been nominated to NTIA, which didn't administer the ACP. That was the FCC's role. I agree with the goal of ensuring that broadband is affordable to all Americans.
So if you had your preferences, you would prefer that a program like that, even if it was an ACP, you would prefer a program like that existed?
Senator, I haven't been confirmed. I don't know. I don't think that the administration has taken a position on this. I think broadband should be affordable for all Americans. It's something that requires an all-of-the-above solution. The particular way you go about it is something that I'd be happy to work with you on.
Yeah, well, I don't think it has been as affordable for a segment of the population that is below, let's say, $40,000 or $50,000 to $40,000 of income. The studies and analysis show they can't afford it, and so I think that's where the gap is. And my personal opinion is that's what we should have focused on as we were looking at BEAD. I don't agree with the critique of the chairman about the BEAD program in the length of time and the deployment, because basically we, instead of letting the FCC, who I also agree wasn't doing a good enough job answering this question, we basically said, okay, we're going to take it out of the hands of the FCC, and now we're going to give it to states, and now they have to set this up, and then they can get the money, and then they can start the deployment. And that took longer. So I personally thought we should have drilled down on this little problem, which is the affordability issue for, you could call them late adopters. I call them just people who can't not afford broadband. And we should have focused more on that as a Congress. But our colleagues, you know, who were also frustrated, Maine, Alaska, various states, you know, very frustrated, basically said, oh no, we're just gonna get our states involved. Well, when states get involved, it becomes complex, and I also don't agree about, you know, the Starlink example of not being something to be concerned about, because we had in our state, look, we're Starlink deployments are very good for particular areas that, and we could see a lot more competition in the future, so we're not even ruling that out. But we had decisions made where tribal areas basically went ahead and pushed with the state to get a satellite solution, only to find that they had to have a backhaul out that nobody had calculated when they made that decision to make that commitment to Starlink. So I do think we have to have really, you know, smart and technical people, you know, involved in this. I really do think that we have to figure out how we're going to get broadband connectivity to lower income Americans, and I hope that you will think about this for the record about how you can commit to that, because even though you're not the core entity, I do think this committee has said over time they're kind of tired with us not having the solutions, and they want NTIA to play a larger role. And so we're not giving you that responsibility, but we are saying they do hope that NTIA plays a larger role on broadband in general. And I think that's because they're frustrated. So that gets me to the next question about technical expertise. You're a policy person, right? Is that, I don't know everything about your background, but you're mostly a policy realm, right?
I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, okay. So what do you think that you will do at NTIA to get a more technical team? The last person in your job was a very technical person. I'm not saying one thing or another about that. I'm just saying, what are you going to do to build the technical expertise under you or with you at NTIA?
Thank you, Senator. I have had the honor of working with so many technical experts at NTIA over the years, particularly in the Office of Spectrum Management, at the ITS. I look forward to working with NTIA's distinguished career staff and working with them. It's something, you know, at the FCC as well, there were attorneys, and then there were technical experts, so we all have to work together to find the right solution.
Well, do you think, you know, we got into arguments with agencies. You know, it was NOAA's scientists versus, you know, somebody else's scientist. What do you think, what is the type of expertise you think we have to get at NTIA so that we are forward-leaning and building that kind of expertise that we can use to get coordination within the federal government?
Thank you. No, it's a good question. I think we need a mix of different expertise to address the tremendous challenges that we face on spectrum, on getting broadband connected. I look forward to working with your office on ensuring that we achieve these goals.
But you agree, if NTIA is going to play this role, which I think our committee thinks that it should, and historically we've been moving towards this, that NTIA has to have the technical horsepower to help succeed in the policy development.
Yes, if confirmed, one thing I look forward to is getting to know NTIA's staff better. I've gotten to know some of them over the years, and I would welcome the opportunity to better understand NTIA's staffing needs.
Well, one of the reasons I bring this up is the chairman earlier this morning at a hearing on the fatal crash at DCA, General Brahman, confirmed that despite FAA warnings, the Secret Service and Navy have been actively jamming spectrum used by aircraft collision avoidance systems at DCA. So if confirmed, you will play a vital role in that coordination process. So do you agree that national security and public safety risks, that we have to figure out how to work on these issues, and that NTIA has to help resolve these issues?
Absolutely. NTIA has to work with other federal agencies to resolve technical disagreements, to ensure that national security and public safety are protected. It's an essential part of the interagency process.
So in that regard, do you agree that NTIA, well, first of all, the report that NTIA did that was about dynamic spectrum sharing, did you review that? I'm assuming you did. I can't remember if you were part of our secure brief last year on this.
I'm not immediately familiar with which particular report you're referring to. Of course, NTIA has done a lot of research on spectrum innovation that I'm familiar with. So
do you agree that NTIA, DoD, and other agencies must complete ongoing studies of the low gigahertz, 3 gigahertz and 7 and 8 gigahertz band before making a decision to reallocate that spectrum?
If confirmed, I look forward to figuring out what the status of those studies are and learning more. I know NTI has some very accomplished technical experts that are working on studies, and I look forward to working with them.
Do you think that before we do an allocation that we should have that information?
I believe that any allocation of spectrum needs to take feasibility studies into account and ensure that our national security is protected, as well as federal missions.
Well, I'm bringing this up because I think it was your witness, Matt Pearl, Director of Emergency Technology at CSIS, it was at a recent hearing, and he basically said, yes, before we move forward, obviously the chairman does have a proposal to move forward without doing that study and analysis, so I'm just trying to understand whether you think that that's vital to do, because in reality, your job is going to be the person who's going to try to help solve all this, right? So I'm just trying to get a sense of whether you are going to move from one position here to this larger coordination position, and whether you're going to make sure that the analysis so important to DoD gets done.
Senator, I believe that national security needs to be paramount in any efforts to reallocate spectrum, and spectrum studies and interagency coordination are a huge part of that.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you for the record, I'll give you a little more time to just say yes or no, whether that has to be completed. I'll write it up for you, and on the 3 gigahertz and 7 and 8, whether that has to be completed before Congress goes ahead and does the allocation. So there's a couple different ways that this could work. I mean, you certainly could write into the reconciliation bill that all that would have to be done. We're saying it has to be done, and obviously that's what we accomplished in the last administration, is getting DoD and NTIA to agree. So we'd like to see the very technical analysis that has to happen be done, given the complaints. So just for the record, do you, my colleagues have asked a lot about BEAD funding, that's great. That means I don't have to ask as much. The BEAD funding allocations under law include 3.3 billion to Texas, 405 million to Nebraska, 451 to Kansas, 1.2 billion to West Virginia, 1 billion to Alaska. These are commitments, so will you, that have been already committed in households. So will you commit to preserving these allocations that NTIA made to each state in 2023, including, I think, about $1 billion to my home state of Washington?
Senator, I will abide by the law.
Is your interpretation of that law that yes, you will go ahead and make those allocations?
I can't commit to any specific outcome as I haven't been confirmed, but I will certainly.
You're saying you don't know what the administration's going to do. Is that what you're saying?
I haven't been confirmed yet. I haven't had an opportunity to look into this issue yet, but I would. I will absolutely.
Well, you know the policy, though. You do know the policy, right? You know that was our intent, and the money's now been allocated, so it's a question of whether you think that those commitments made in 2023 should be upheld.
I believe that NTIA, if confirmed, I look forward to reviewing those allocations and ensuring that the program is compliant with the law. I will always abide by the law, Senator, and I look forward to working with you on the BEAD program.
Thank you. I would have liked a stronger commitment. So, but we'll get back to you on the 3 gigahertz and give in a written answer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.